The soft evening light filtered through the grand glass windows of the James family mansion, spreading across the polished marble floors like liquid gold. The faint scent of pine mingled with the delicate perfume of Mrs. Huyen's freshly brewed tea. On the surface, everything appeared calm, serene, like a portrait of wealth and order. But beneath that stillness, a storm was brewing. James had just returned from work, his sleeves rolled up, hands still dusted with traces of sawdust from the lumberyard. To him, the smell of wood had always meant progress, something solid, dependable, alive. Yet today, that scent carried a weight he couldn't shake. He knew what awaited him upstairs. "Dad," he began quietly, standing at the threshold of the grand living room where his father sat reading over a stack of reports. "The contract with the new supplier has been approved. And there's something else I'd like to talk about." Mr. Robert James did not look up right away. The golden light from the lamp glinted off his silver hair as he turned a page with slow precision. "What is it, son?" he asked. James hesitated, his breath catching for just a second. "It's about Deep." The room seemed to freeze. Even the clock's ticking grew louder. Mr. James lowered his glasses, eyes narrowing into steel. "You're still talking about that girl?" "Yes, Father," James said, forcing calm into his voice. "We've been through enough to understand what we want." "Deep is kind, hardworking, and I'm not interested in hearing that." His father's tone sliced through the air like a knife. From the corner of the room, Mrs. Huyen, quiet and gentle, looked up. "Robert," she said softly, "at least let him explain." But her husband ignored her. His eyes, sharp and proud, pinned his son in place. "You may run a company, James, but you still lack judgment in life." "You're a CEO, and she's a farmer's daughter, a divorced woman raising a child she suddenly claims as her own." He paused, voice tightening. "Tell me, how can I allow my only son to marry such a woman?" James clenched his fists. "That child, baby Nhi, is not what you think," he said, struggling to keep his composure. "She's innocent. Deep didn't have to take her in, but she did. That's compassion, not shame." "Compassion? Or guilt?" his father snapped. "You don't even know whose child that really is." "What if she is hers? What if you're raising another man's daughter under my roof?" The words struck like a physical blow. James wanted to shout, to defend the woman he loved, but the rigid authority in his father's eyes silenced him. He had seen that same look lead the family empire through decades of triumph and bloodless wars. Arguing would be useless. Robert, Mrs. Huyen tried again, her voice trembling, you judge too quickly. I've met the girl, she's polite, humble. The child looks nothing like Deep. Looks can deceive, mister. James said coldly, you women are ruled by feelings. I built everything here with logic, not emotion. He rose to his full height, his shadow stretching long across the marble floor. I forbid this marriage until I know exactly where that child came from. There will be no wedding. James's throat tightened. His father's words fell heavy, final, an edict carved in stone. But in that cold certainty, James sensed something more. This wasn't just pride or class prejudice. It was fear, fear of something buried in the past, something his father dared not name. Outside, rain began to fall, soft against the window panes. Mrs. Huyen turned toward her husband, voice breaking. You've spent your life protecting this family, Robert. But maybe it's time to let your son protect his own happiness. Mr. James didn't reply. He simply turned away, the air around him thick with unspoken memories. That night, as James drove through the rain toward Deep's small countryside home, his father's words echoed in his mind. Baby Nyi's laughter, the sound that usually melted his stress, now replayed like a haunting tune. Was there truly something about that child he didn't know? The countryside was drenched when he arrived. Through the foggy window, he saw Deep humming softly, lulling baby Nhi to sleep. The kitchen light fell warm and golden, dancing over her face. The faint scent of lemongrass and ginger tea filled the air. He stood at the door for a moment before knocking. When Deep opened it, surprise flickered into concern. James, you look tired. Is everything all right? He tried to smile but couldn't. Can we talk? She nodded, poured him tea, and waited. The silence between them was fragile. It's about my father, he began finally. He still refuses to accept us, because of Nhi. Deep's hands froze on the teacup. He thinks she might be my biological daughter, she whispered. James nodded, his tone steady. He believes you're hiding something. The rain grew heavier. The sound filled the small house, pressing on them both. For a long time, Deep said nothing. Then, finally, her voice broke through, trembling. James, I didn't lie to you. But there's something I never told you, not because I wanted to hide it, but because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that if you knew the truth, you'd look at me differently. Her eyes drifted toward the small bedroom, where baby Nhi slept, clutching a faded stuffed rabbit. She isn't my biological daughter, Deep said at last, but she's part of my past. James leaned forward, his heart pounding. What do you mean? Years ago, she began, before I met you, I worked for a charity project in the countryside. There was a car accident, one of the worst I'd ever seen. A young woman died that night, leaving behind her baby. I was there. I was the one who picked her up. She was crying, soaked in blood and rain. And something inside me told me, I couldn't let her go. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but she smiled faintly. I named her NHI. I promised her I'd give her a home, no matter what. James felt his chest tighten. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. Why didn't you tell me? Because people talk, James. They always do. I didn't want your father, or anyone, to think I adopted her out of pity or to fill a void. I just wanted her to grow up in love, not judgment. James's eyes softened. You didn't have to be afraid, he said quietly. You did what was right. I'm proud of you. Deep smiled through tears. But your father, he'll never see it that way, will he? James shook his head. Not yet. But he will. Thunder rumbled faintly outside. Baby NHI stirred, murmuring in her sleep. James rose and walked toward her. Her small face, so serene, so innocent, suddenly felt familiar in a way he couldn't explain. Deep, he asked softly, do you remember anything else about the woman who died? She frowned, thinking hard. Not much. It was chaos. But I remember, the car had a foreign license plate. And a man arrived later, saying she had worked for a big company overseas. A chill ran down James's spine. His mind flashed back to something his father had once mentioned, a woman who disappeared after a scandal years ago. A woman connected to their company. Could it be the same person? The rain thudded harder against the roof as realization sank in. Maybe his father's objection wasn't only about class, or pride, maybe it was because he already knew. The next morning, the sky was gray. James drove straight to the villa, his mind still tangled in the night's revelations. He found his father in the study, calmly sipping tea, as though waiting for this moment. You look troubled, the old man said. James didn't waste time. Father, what do you know about baby NHI? The teacup froze midair. Slowly, Mr. James set it down and looked at him. Why do you ask? Because Deep told me the truth. NHI isn't her daughter. She was adopted after a car crash. But I think you already knew that, didn't you? Silence sliced through the room. Finally, the old man sighed, a sound of age, weariness, and regret. Yes, he admitted. I knew. James's heart clenched. How? Why didn't you ever tell me? His father's voice trembled slightly. The woman who died in that crash was your mother's friend. She was carrying the child of a man who worked for our company. When the accident happened, I ordered it to be covered up. I didn't want the scandal to destroy us. James stared in disbelief. You mean? NHI could be related to our family? I don't know, his father said quietly. But when I saw her, something about her reminded me of your mother. That's why I couldn't let you marry Deep. Not because I hated her, but because I feared the past would return to destroy you both. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them felt bottomless. Then James said softly, Father, the past has already taken enough from us. I won't let it take the woman I love, or the child who calls me Dad. His father didn't answer. He only looked away, eyes glimmering with regret as rain blurred the window pane. Days turned to weeks. Yet the storm inside James didn't fade. His father's confession haunted him. Could baby NHI truly be tied to his family's past? But every time she ran to him, tiny arms open, voice bright with laughter, he felt certain of one thing. Whatever her bloodline, she was his daughter. In every way that mattered. One quiet evening, James returned to the little house where Deep and NHI were staying. Inside, warm light flickered. Deep stood by the counter, teaching NHI to roll dough, their laughter mixing with the soft aroma of baked bread. It was a picture of peace, a fragile kind he'd spent years chasing. When Deep saw him, her face softened. James, she said, smiling, you've been so quiet lately. Are you all right? He took her hands gently. I know the truth now, about NHI, about my father, about everything. But none of that changes how I feel. What matters is you, and her. Tears filled Deep's eyes. But your father, he's afraid. Yes, James said softly. Afraid of losing me to the same kind of pain he once felt. But love isn't something we should hide from. It's something we protect, no matter how complicated it gets. At that moment, baby NHI toddled toward them, clutching two little paper rings made from candy wrappers. Mommy, Daddy, she said proudly. Wedding rings. Deep burst into tears. James knelt down, holding them both close. Then let's promise, he whispered, that no matter what happens, we'll stay together. Family isn't about blood, it's about love. Outside, the wind carried the faint scent of jasmine. For the first time in months, James felt peace. His father's fears, the buried secrets, all of it faded behind him. Only truth remained. Love, when chosen with the heart, can overcome any history.